Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Creative Thinkers. My name is Miguel Valenzuela, and today's guest is Joey Sanchez from Caboots. He is also, ironically, the lead singer of Funky Mongol. So, Joey, how are you? Thank you for coming today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, so I want to talk to you a little bit about how you grew up, what influences you had as a child, maybe when you were growing up, how creativity influenced you as an individual to get to where you are today. So can you tell us something about where you grew up? Are you from El Paso?
Sure, I'm from El Paso. Fourth generation boot company, so my whole life I've been around boot factories. When I was a kid, my dad would always take me to boot factories, and I'd see how the production process occurred. And there was always boot makers around, and my mom, she ran the custom end of the boot company, so there was more of a creative process that occurred with that because people were ordering, their logos or just custom designs. So I kind of fell into it. Never really meant to sell boots, but it just followed me around everywhere I went in my life.
So it's something that you couldn't get out of?
Well, I could have, but I just, there's a couple instances in my life when I was pursuing other things in life, and the people would be like, "Why? You've got this. Why would you want to do this when you got this?"
The boot kind of life was always around you?
Well, when I was in my 20s, I wanted to be a professional musician, which I didn't quite understand what that meant at the time, and I had the opportunity to sell boots to a lot of heavy metal rock bands like Kiss and Motley Crue and all the major rock bands. So we'd go sell boots to them backstage, or they'd invite us. And after a while, they were inviting us to LA, and I'd hang out in Beverly Hills and go to all these parties, right? And there'd be musicians. Wow. And so I'd have my demo tape with me, and I remember one instance where Paul Stanley came up to me, and he's all, Paul Stanley was really instrumental in everything that happened in LA, but I was showing him a tape, and he's like, "It is great, yeah." He goes, you've definitely got the talent to do this, but he goes, you got to consider a lot of things, like, can you be as good as Kiss? Can you be as good as Def Leppard? I mean, you don't want to be a bottom rung musician. You want to be a top rung musician. So if you think you can do that, do it. He goes, but you're the only one that can answer that. He goes, but you own a boot company. Why the hell would you want to be a musician? I mean, it's horrible. It's a horrible life. You've got a boot company. I mean, if I were you, I'd just sell boots. Because if I had that opportunity when I was young, I would have never been a musician.
So the whole aspect of you guys making boots for musicians kind of pushed you into staying as a bootmaker?
Well, every time I kind of pursued going further with being a musician, there was just always, something would happen. They're like, "Oh, by the way, I heard you sell boots. Can you sell me a pair of boots?" And the phone just never stopped ringing. I mean, it's just my whole life. It's not like I do have this huge advertising budget, or I call people. It's like, "Hey, you need to buy a pair of boots." The phone just rings. My life is like the phone keeps ringing.
All about boots, right?
Well, no, I mean, we've got Funky Mongol. The same thing had to happen.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about Funky Mongol.
So Funky Mongol, it's just being a musician. It's I always joke around that it's a disease being a musician, because it's hard to shake. And some people are lucky enough to shake it, and some people get lucky and get to be big, entertainers. But as far as Funky Mongol, it just kind of came about. And I was singing in this band, and it was just a horrible, horrible gig. And I talked the band into learning "Get Down Tonight" by Casey and the Sunshine Band, and there was nobody there one night, and I said, "Come on, let's just play that song." And we played it, and for some reason the dance floor just packed, and I don't know where all these people came from. And it just kept on progressing and progressing, and the more that we more energy I gave to Funky Mongol, the phone never stopped ringing. It's still to this day. I mean, I get calls every day, like, for bookings.
And you do parties and whatnot with Funky Mongol?
We do a lot more corporate stuff, parties, and we do city events, stuff like that.
That's very cool. So for those of the audience that don't know what Funky Mongol is, can you tell us a little bit about the actual band? Do you guys put on costumes? What do you guys do?
Yeah, we're a 70s show band. We play, specialize kind of more in, stuff like Casey and the Sunshine Band and Rick James and stuff like that. A little more funk, but then we also add, like, we'll throw Guns N' Roses song in there.
Hey, why not? It's all about being creative, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, though, because, we've been closing the show with Guns N' Roses lately, and people are just like, it like turns into, it's like it doesn't even fit the format. But
well, that's pretty cool.
It's really, it's like boots. Everything in life, I think, is the philosophy is, people just want quality, and they want to be able to escape. And even like with boots, I mean, half the time customers call, and they don't need a pair of boots. We sell custom boots, and our boots are pretty expensive. And most of the people that buy boots, they just call to talk. And then, oh, by the way, I was thinking about this pair of boots. And I've had that happen. I mean, I have customers that have purchased 100 pairs, and they have rooms full of boots, you know, not just mine, but everybody's boots, or they might have purchased 100 pairs for me. And they don't ever wear 100 pairs of boots. They just purchase them because it gives them a feeling when they buy it, right? And same thing with, you know, Funky Mongols is kind of the same thing. They just want to go and escape, and it's almost a form of escapism for the audience.
But is that something that you grew up with, kind of learning these kinds of ideas and concepts as a child?
No, I don't know. Well, Catholic school, I had to escape from there.
Maybe that's where it all stemmed from, right?
Yeah, I don't know. You know.
Because I'm a very creative individual as well, and I as well went to a Catholic school,
right.
And that's kind of where my whole idea of being creative and rebelliousness came from, is this kind of being stuck in a little box to a certain degree, and that pushed me to be a lot more creative in the way that I do things. What was your concept back when you were a child?
Well, I mean, you know,
and this is all subconscious things, you know.
Ever since I was a kid, I just wanted to be a musician. I mean, I always wanted to sing. I always wanted to be in a band. I even have drawings from St. Joseph where, you know, a friend of mine, Hector Romero, and I would talk about when we get out of St. Joseph's, we're going to start a band. And people would laugh at us. Blah, blah. We had a name called Drew Powell. There was going to be slides on stage and all this craziness, you know. He went off to college, and I think he teaches at UTEP now. And I'm just, you know, then, you know, after St. Joseph, I went to Burgess, and there's a band that needed a singer. And really the only reason they hired me is because my parents could afford to buy a PA. So, but, you know, and then so we just played, and we played all the time. And ever since then, I mean, I've been just singing on weekends and doing things, you know. And then the boot thing happened where, you know, I'm fourth generation, so I was around boots my whole life. But the Scorpions came to town, and my dad was like, hey, let's go sell boots to Scorpions. And I was like, Dad, you can't even get backstage. It's silly. Come on. You know, I was Mr. Doubter. And he said, come on. And he drags me back there and takes me to a production room and says, my son loves rock and roll, and we sell boots. We want to sell boots to Scorpions.
Nice.
I couldn't believe we got that far. They said, we'll call you. And I was like, well, I thought that was the end of it. So my wife and I are driving down the road, and I call Mom, just checking in, and she's like, yeah, they called. They want you to be there whatever amount of time. And we didn't even have cool boots at the time. And there's like boring-ass boots. And we took them down there, and sure enough, they bought it. But what happened that day was their publicist was in El Paso, because they'd just come back from Russia. Mm-hmm. They'd done that whole Russian thing. And so it was their second day of the tour or something like that. So she was there, and she knew everybody. And she was really personal friends with Paul Stanley. So she introduced me to Paul Stanley, and then Paul Stanley was like, you know, every time you come to LA, make sure I'm your first phone call. I want you to be my first phone call. And he took me to meet Cher, and I mean, everybody. We used to hang out and parties, and I did that for about 3 or 5 years. It was a fun little run. And I was young, you know, I was just, you know, it was interesting to me. But the more I saw the mechanics and how that whole rock and roll machine worked, and I realized, well, I'm not a primary songwriter. I'm not a great songwriter. And I was kind of a spoiled kid growing up anyway. So I didn't have, I mean, who can relate to being a spoiled kid, you know? Right. So the types of lyrics I would be writing weren't things I don't think that most people could latch into. So, you know, it was like, and then the phone kept on ringing about boots. So I just kind of kept, you know, boots, well, it wasn't like I pursued boots. Boots pursued me almost in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which I think is very interesting.
Yeah,
so you actually manufacture the boots here in El Paso?
We make them from scratch.
I just wanted to thank Joey Sanchez for allowing us to come into his design studio here in El Paso, Texas. I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about the smells that we have in this studio, what we can see in here, what we're doing, the design aspect, how you come up with such beautiful designs. I noticed that when you handed me this, you also had a sheet of paper right next to it that had the design. Talk to us.
So, I think the first thing people say when they walk in the shop is like, wow, this smelled leather. I can't smell the leather anymore. I've been in here so many years, but you know, you're immersed in the aroma of leather and colors, and there's a lot of different you know, colors of leather and swatches you can kind of dig through and you create a boot. So when somebody comes in and says, let's say they want this particular boot,
right?
The first thing we'll do is we'll kind of start sketching it out and draw it out, and then from there they'll make a pattern and duplicate them and put them on a piece of leather. and literally they'll hand cut them.
Does the customer ask for a specific design, or do you guys help them make a design?
It depends. I mean, sometimes they ask us for design help, and we'll definitely do design help for them, but majority of the time somebody kind of comes in and says, I want this, 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 and that, and we just kind of put the design together for them.
So for example, in this particular boot, is this something that somebody chose, the blue color, the brown color, the gold color on this?
Yeah.
Or did you kind of come up with this idea yourself?
No, they come up with their, like they'll have an outfit they want to kind of match up. Maybe they're a musician and they're a fiddle player and they have something they want to match up. This boot's a vintage boot from the 20s or something, so it's a replica of that particular boot. And but I mean, the other day somebody came in and they wanted a Big Ten boot with all the different teams on there, and
wow,
the OU upside down, and you know.
Oh my gosh! So you can make anything here.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Any type of design.
Sure. Yeah.
Another thing that I noticed is that there's a lot of sound going on in the background here.
Well, the sound, that's a 220 converter. It just converts the electricity from 110 to 220 so that he can stitch and sew on the sewing machines. We use a converter here instead of bringing in a big line because it's just a small shop, so we don't do large-scale production in here.
Very good. So these designs then now turn into what he's doing right here, correct?
Yeah, definitely. So
can you tell us a little bit about that? What is he doing exactly right now?
Well, he's literally stitching the design into the boot. So it's been hand cut, and you have to stitch the edges so it won't fall apart. And so that's a front quarter, and those are the tops of the boots.
That would be this thing right here.
Very top of the boot, yeah.
Very nice. So as he's stitching, I see that these are different layers. Has he stitched all of this together at one point, or does he create it one layer at a time?
Well, you lay it out, and then you kind of glue it into place, and then you'll stitch it once it's all glued into place.
And then another thing that you were showing me a little while ago is how he gets all of these pieces together. Are they different types of leather?
Yeah, you can choose every single. I mean, sometimes it's overwhelming when I'm placing an order with somebody, and they're used to just seeing a picture and they'll choose a size, right? And I'll start going, well, what do you want on this? What do you want? What kind of piping do you want? What color piping? Do you want the inlay to be this and that? And they're like, oh, I never thought of that.
So basically, most people say, I want a boot. And
just like the picture, yeah.
And then you might be the one that comes up with a little bit more of the concept. Hey, you know what? I want definitely an eagle on here.
Yeah.
And you say, you know what? We can add some gold. We can add some blue.
No,
we can add a little bit more stitching. We can add some flowers, things of that nature. I think you had mentioned something about the way that you guys fold the leather.
We have a crimping machine over here where we do a single piece Civil War reenactment boot. We do a lot of that. There's not too many companies that can do it or do it correctly, and we're fortunate that we're able to do that.
So you guys are more like old craftsmen.
Sure.
You guys create boots the way that we used to create boots back in the day.
Back in the 40s and 50s, yeah, everything's still hand cut, hand stitched. You know, nowadays most of the boots, if you go to a store, they're all made by a computer or just, you know, they're not handcrafted anymore. They don't even use the real leather.
Wow.
And we still maintain that standard of handcrafted boots, all leather components. We don't use any synthetic. We don't use any pig lining. It's just all quality calf line boots.
And what's the best part of having a studio like this for you? Is it the hands-on aspect of it? Is it seeing the craftsman work?
I enjoy just the everyday, the creation of it when customers call and they have an idea and you can tell they've been told no a million times. They're like, oh, there's certain limitations to what can be, what's possible, and then we kind of go to the creative process and it just blossoms from a simple idea, drawing, to like, boom, here's a boot. You know, I'm like, wow, that's great. You know, I never thought, and you can see their face when they come in, like, ah, I love it.
Yeah, tell me how excited people get to actually have a pair of boots like this.
Oh,
what do they say?
They'll wear them, and then around the world they'll send you pictures like, I was, you know, here in the Red Square, look at my boots, or wherever, you know. Sometimes they go to the beach with their boots on.
So a lot of it has to do with the experience then, I think.
Yeah, it's more of an experience. I mean, most of the time, most of the customers coming in don't need a pair of boots. They just want something different, and they want to be more creative and more expressive. And I think one of our biggest demographics, I always kind of jokingly say, it's midlife crisis male.
Why is that?
Well, you know, the earning potential of their life, and
right.
You know, they've collected all these other things, and all of a sudden they kind of get into boot collecting. And I've had people buy 100 pairs of boots, just, you know, they're all, for me, 100 pairs of boots. That's not including the other 100 or 200 pairs of boots that they've collected just,
wow.
You know, doing other things. and that's not uncommon. I mean, you'll find it pretty prevalent with any custom boot maker. We've all got stories of that, you know. And you get invited to a lot of really cool things. You know, I've been invited to football games. You get to luncheons. You get all sorts. You get sometimes they'll invite you like, well, we're gonna go. We've chartered a yacht, and a bunch of friends are going out. We're gonna go fishing, but you come out and sell boots while we're out in the yacht and just hang out with us all. And you know, stuff like that happens all the time. Concerts. I've been to a gazillion concerts where, you know, backstage selling boots to the bands or movie stars and stuff like that. I did that more in my 20s than I do now, but it's those kind of opportunities always kind of spring themselves on you, being a custom boot maker, because it's a handcrafted thing that nobody can do anymore. I mean, it's a dying thing, and even other stuff that might have been customizable in the past is not so much customizable, you know, beyond boots.
Creativity is important. Obviously, this has a lot of creativity put into it. Do you think that this is something that your customer or your client then expresses themselves through this creative process? So maybe they can't do that in one way, but they do it through this?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, number one, it's a status symbol because, you know, people see you walk in like, whoa, and how much did you pay for that? You know,
right.
Type thing. And yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a great way to express an idea or a potential idea of, you know, like you're gonna walk in a courtroom and you got a nice pair of boots on. You know, I'm coming in here, I mean business,
right?
Instead of, you know, a pair of shoes you get off the rack.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, this is a beautiful place. I really want to thank you for having us here. I think everything that you have here is going to be very impressive for the viewing audience to see. So thank you very much, Joey.
Thanks for coming in.
And that's what really attracted me about your company, is the quality of the work that you guys manufacture, but also the creative aspect. As we can see here, we've got something that deals with Funky Mongol.
Right.
We also have some Kiss boots, and then we have some Southwestern styled boots.
Right.
And do the people that you hire to kind of clean up the designs, do you focus on creativity as well with them? Is that something that you kind of push for? You know, show me what your talents are, or do you just make boots?
No, there used to be a word that one of the guys called it. It was called aguja de oro.
Why?
So it's a golden needle.
Uh-huh.
And there were certain people that could top stitch super clean, and they call them aguja de oro. And so there's other ones that, you know, you use for these other boots, for production boots, but for like the really fine boots, you find an aguja de oro.
Yeah, because it looks very, very difficult to make.
And like even something like this, you know, you got the detail of their signatures.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome stuff. So going back to, were your parents a huge influence on you as far as getting to this point?
Yeah, you know, they're always kind of pushing me to, it was, I don't know. They're both
follow your dreams.
You know, my dad always told me to get in radio. He's like, you should get in radio. But my wife was really the biggest influence, because once we kind of met and we had this boot factory, it was interesting because she came from a kind of similar background. Like her parents owned Las Cruces Tortillas, and you know, as a local local well-known tortilla factory, you know, and Champion Boot Company, my parents owned that. So, you know, we kind of had similar backgrounds, and then as we started progressing and putting the company together, I think my wife pushed me more in, like, you know, progressing as a boot maker than I would have, you know, who knows what I would have done. But in the long run, you know, it's been a better ride than I think. Now, I have a lot of friends that tried to be musicians.
Well, yeah, I can imagine. That was the thing, right?
Yeah.
When you're young?
And some of them actually like really made it big, but you see them now and they look half dead. You know, it's a rough thing. So I kind of just got warned by a lot of musicians, even like going backstage. And I remember this one instance where this one band was, the guy was just whining and crying, and I said, "Hey man, remember when you were on the streets and you said you'd do anything to be at this moment? Well, you're there, you know, and appreciate it." He goes, "You don't understand. You just don't understand."
You don't really understand until you're there, right?
You don't understand. He goes, "You know, I get what you're saying, but you don't understand." And then, you know, he kind of left. And then, see, the more I learned about all that was just, you know, you really get to make no choices in life. And as I got closer to that and realized how out of control that lifestyle was, I was like, I can't do that. I'm too narcissistic.
Because I think one of the things that we had spoken about is the fact that if you are a musician, a lot of times you're guided to do certain things at certain times, and that kind of stifles your creativity to a certain degree. And do you feel that way through Boots? Or is it much more open and liberating?
You know, it's like you have to divide your time, your mental time, because there's times when like the phone rings and it's the sale, and I'm like, oh, I got to sell a pair of boots right now. And you got to get in that mode, but you're in this mode of getting other things done. So there's like a business side to it, and then there's working side, and then there's creative side. And you can't stay in creative side all the time, or else nothing else gets done. And then there's, you know, worker bee type, you know. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And I used to think, for a while we had a really big staff. We were making a gazillion pairs of boots. And, you know, it was almost like I saw the boot company as like 3 different companies. There was this technology company, because you had to write software for back-end fulfillment. At the time, there wasn't all this software written. So we had to write software in order to manage our orders. And then you had to have your promotional, creative website and advertising business, right? And then you had to have your accounting business, and then you had to have your production. So there's like multiple facets of that business, but each one could be its own business. You know what I mean? You could actually, if each business could subcontract to each other. And, you know, that's why I guess bigger companies, they have, you know, they hire advertising firms to come in doing everything.
Right.
So that I kind of like doing all of them, but I can't do them all, obviously, you know.
Right.
But being a smaller company, you can, you know, but, you know, you're kind of, it's a catch-22, because you get caught at that point where, like, I don't feel like doing anything. And you have to, you know. But, you know, and it's like, you have those days where, like, you get, like, blocked. And I'm sure you have those days where you're just there, right? And you're just like, I know I got to do that. I know and I physically can't do it.
What kind of a reaction have you had from people to the fact that you make these very creative boots?
Well, no, I mean, that's easy. I mean, everybody's like, wow, that's good. I mean, who has a boot company that can do that? I mean, that's pretty amazing. I mean, we're a top level boot company, so we always get good reaction. And it's hard to find good boot companies anymore. There used to be a time in El Paso when there were a dime a dozen. And now, you know, most of the older boot makers passed away, and their kids did not get in the business, because it's a tough business. It's really hard. It's hard to make money in boots, period. And so they go to college and they disappear, and they don't come back. So you don't see any young people making boots or owning boot companies in El Paso. They're mostly older.
And that's what I think is interesting, because you told us earlier that you're 4th generation, which means that there must have been that creative spark somewhere that led you to stay in this business.
Well, you know, we always pursued, my wife and I always pursued doing a higher level boot. And we weren't about being a flash in the pan. We just, you know, quality was always, it had to be a top quality boot, and there was nothing else. I mean, there's so many easy ways to sell out in making boots and make more money at it, but why? I mean, I just don't. So the phone keeps on ringing, because people realize, well, I want a good quality boot. It's going to last a lifetime. Even so, sometimes it's just a plain black boot, and we sell a lot of just plain black boots.
Oh, wow.
Which is fine, but it's a good quality boot. It's not like, you know, not like a junky thing you go to Cavender's or something like that. You know, it's something like this. My great-grandchild might even wear this boot. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, exactly. It's like when I paint, same thing. I get that same kind of feeling. They're like my children. Yeah. You can't look at it any other way. In your life, at some point, did you ever have that kind of light bulb moment, that epiphany that led you to say, this is the way I'm going to be, this creative individual, I'm going to sing, I'm going to make creative boots, I'm going to do this, that, and the other?
It was just like breathing more than anything. I mean, the only epiphany moment is like, I should have got out of here sooner. Why am I still here?
In the city, in the boot making business, singing?
Well, I mean, there's like better markets to be in for what I do, you know, but I don't know, just kind of, this is where the boot factory was, and just where we kind of anchored ourselves, and then we had kids, and then, you know, it's a good place to raise kids.
Do you kind of instill the same kind of way of thinking in your children?
As far as?
The whole think outside the box, be creative, kind of go and, you know, be free and open about things.
Yeah.
In which way do you do that?
Well, you know, we always say you got to go to college, right?
Of course.
And so we focus. But we've always kind of let them be free-thinking individuals and make their own decisions and argue points to the death, you know. The one thing I always told my kid was, you know, when you graduate from college, I don't want you to go get a job. You know, I want you to, I'll buy you a Westphalia or something, and I just travel.
Mm-hmm.
Just go disappear for a while. You can have but just have your degree first, you know, and then you can figure it out from there. Because the worst thing you want to do is you come out of college, and well, it's a nice car, but then you get debt, and you buy a house, and before you know it, you're like, I'm so in debt, I'm gonna be here for 30 years, and it's an easy trap. So I was always like, you know, so I have one kid in film school, another one he wants to go to. He's a senior in high school. He's about to launch, and he wants to go be an astrophysicist, you know.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's going to be pretty cool. Creativity comes in many ways.
Right.
It doesn't have to come in the way that you just make boots or you sing in a band. The astrophysicist could also be creative,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Well, he plays banjo.
Yeah, so
he taught himself banjo.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I think it's very important, and that's kind of what we talk a lot about in this show is, you know, why being creative is important. For you, how important is it to think outside the box?
That's all I do. I don't know how to think inside the box is the problem. And I think that annoys a lot of people, and it freaks people out.
Is that because they think you're different?
They think I'm dangerous or something. You know, they don't know, like, is he going to take a left turn? Is he going to take a left turn? And, you know, I can see that. But I mean, like, especially, like, I put my kids in scouting because, you know, I think the Boy Scouts, it's a great program for kids in general because, you know,
Mm-hmm.
good American values and, you know, good. But there's a certain box structure to that. And, you know, I don't necessarily agree with everything about it. I agree with good 80, 90% of it.
Right.
And enough to, you know, want my kids to become Eagle Scouts, became Eagle Scouts. But everybody that's in that program, well, not everybody, but a lot of people in that program are very like, wait a second, this is the box. You can't go outside the box. And I'm like, well, we're going outside the box today. And that would freak people out, you know?
And I think it's interesting because the general public doesn't really want to accept this whole idea of thinking outside the box. But I think that
well, they do, though, because they go see movies every weekend. I mean,
true.
You know, what's the biggest movies right now? Look at the Joker. That's a crazy out of the box. Somebody had to think way out of the box for that thing. But it's the number one. And people want to escape.
I think that's what it is. Go ahead.
And if you can help people escape, I mean, that was my theory with Funky Mongol was if you can capture about 3 or 4 emotions within a performance, you got them, man. And the easiest one is laughter with Funky Mongol. You put that wig on and they show up in funny clothes and people are like, ah, and then you start playing good music and like memories and you take them down memory and the slow song, and, you know, make them cry or whatever you want to do. And if you can, that's what movies do. They take you to this emotional baggage of yes, I can experience that, or I felt that in my life. And that's, you know, the bigger movies win because they can do that. And there's a way to emotionally grab into you. And that's the same thing with boots, you know. It's like, wow, this is a good boot, but wow, look at how they did that stitching. And it kind of reminds me of my dad's old boots, you know, he used to wear them all the time, and this and that, or, you know, whatever I mean. And then you go to that whole emotional, psychological experience of something tangible, you know.
So that's beautiful stuff. So are you going to be having anything coming up soon where we could go see either come to your studio and you can tell us where that is located,
Sure.
or maybe look at a show or watch a show that you're in?
Sure.
Tell us.
Come on down. Come on. We'll come to this box over there.
Where are you located?
Come
Do you
through
have
this door.
do you have a Facebook? Do you have a
Yeah.
phone number that anybody can get a hold of you?
We're at 407 East Nevada is where the Caboots is at, and our number is 915-309-4791. Same number for Funky Mongol. It all comes to me.
Very, very
Gotta
nice.
do the bookings, and yeah, come on down, and we're going to show you how a pair of boots is made, and we'll have some fun.
Awesome.
And I'll show you my platform shoes, my afro
There you go.
costume.
We want to check everything out.
Yeah.
All right. So in conclusion, we want to thank Joey for showing up, come and bringing us some really, really cool boots. And I want to invite you guys to give me a call as well. My number is 512-717-2426. If you guys know anybody interesting that is very, very creative, have them give me a call. Thank you very much.